Today, we've got a good show for you. We are asking the question, is Gen Z killing 12-step groups? Have they hurt anonymity? We're going to dive into that in this episode and much more.
I held the weight of the world in my hands, but I let it go. Now I understand. I'm awake, I'm aware, I'm alive. I'm living my best recovered life.
You're listening to the Recovered Life Show, the show that helps people in recovery live their best recovered lives. And here is your host, Damon Frank.
Oh, guys, I'm excited to be here today. We've got a great show. We're talking about, is Gen Z killing 12-step groups? We're going to ask that question. Is it killing 12-step groups? Has Gen Z so messed with the anonymity, so messed with being publicly out there as being in recovery, that we've somehow watered down 12-step groups? I'm asking the question, friends. I'm asking the question. And the reason I'm asking the question is I got forwarded this by my buddy Kevin this weekend, because he knows that I do the whole TikTok thing. And it was a Slate magazine, I think it was called Slate, wrote an article, and it was how Gen Z is rewriting the rules of sobriety, from influencers to hashtag sober talk. And they're asking the question here and talking about the history of Bill Wilson. They're talking about Alcoholics Anonymous. They're talking about how now everybody seems to be recovering out loud. And the whole premise of Alcoholics Anonymous, one of the premises, not the entire premise, but one of the foundations was anonymity. It was anonymity, friends. So we're going to ask this question today. We're going to get into this. I have some thoughts on it. And I think it's a question we have to ask, because there's a lot of people that have told me, that have given me the side eye, that know me from 12-step groups, that have kind of given me the, Damon, what are you doing? There's some things we talk about publicly. There's some things we don't. And I've noticed that a lot of this has fallen out. The author goes on to say that when they got sober in 2008, that they were an active member, that they're no longer an active member now. That's what it says in the article. But they talk about the 90-year-old organization and 12 steps and 12 traditions. Consistently, one of the reasons that people used to do it and are part of it is anonymity. So the question is, friends, has Gen Z blown this up? Have they taken anonymity and blown it up? Now, I'm going to tell you my view of this as somebody who's been involved in 12-step groups and also been very involved on TikTok. So if you're listening to this on TikTok, or you're listening to this through the podcast or on Recovered Life TV, you might be receiving it a little different than other people do. I'm going to say this. I'm going to make a bold statement. I do believe Gen Z and the pandemic changed 12-step groups forever. I'm going to say it, friends. I think that happened. I think 12-step groups, because of the pandemic and because of what has gone on with things like TikTok and people recovering out loud, have shattered, I believe, some key elements of what Alcoholics Anonymous, NA, Al-Anon have always gone by. which is most people were not recovering out loud. When I got in at 93, most people were not running into a public room and saying, by the way, I'm sober. That did not happen as much. It happens every day here on TikTok. Also, people openly talking about 12-step groups. Now, when I say this, when I say 12-step groups, friends, whether you're listening to this on the podcast or listening to it live, I'm telling you right now, it I'm very careful about what I say. I primarily say 12-step groups, but when I'm quoting something, I will say AA or NA if I'm quoting that, or Al-Anon, if you will.
Away, my bro.
And so when we talk about this, in a way, how has it? How has it messed it up? Well, one is it's not as private as it used to be. So people who used to come in, the front door used to be a 12-step group. It used to be the local AA meeting in the church, and maybe you would know people, maybe you didn't. But sometimes it's very easy to find people online, and they would come in, and they would come into a 12-step group, and they would have to go to the process. They would have to meet somebody face to face. Although there were online meetings, friends, I'm just telling you, I was very tech savvy. That was not happening before the pandemic. Friends, it was not. And so when we look at this whole thing about TikTok, when we look at the sobriety and people are meshing in part AA, part NA, part Al-Anon, we have therapists on here. I'm just going to tell you, as a newcomer, I could see how this could be pretty confusing. And that's why I think it's kind of everybody's obligation when we talk about AA or NA, we actually quote it from there and say we're not speaking as a member or a spokesperson for it. But I will tell you, what are the pros that are happening here? You used to have to get to a place where you could physically go to a place. Maybe you'd call on the phone. But I'll tell you now, people come in here even thinking that maybe something's not right is pretty friggin' amazing. And so I think a lot of the people who think that Gen Z has killed anonymity, they have warped 12-step groups. In some ways, they are correct. And I think they are correct because the stigma of alcoholism and addiction is not there the way it was. Friends, it's not there the way it was. I'm just going to tell you this. I don't know about you, but in 1993, when I walked in, you did not go into an employer. You did not go into a group of people, even if you knew them well. You didn't even go on a first date and say, oh, by the way, I'm sober. You didn't do that. Gen Z has no problem saying, this is the way I am. I think I struggle with alcohol. And there is something beautiful about that, friend. There is something, I'm just going to tell you, of experiencing it and not being a Gen Z. I'm a Gen Xer. I will tell you that there is something beautiful about people coming in here and literally saying, hey, you know what? I might have a problem. The awareness is off the chart with Gen Z. Now, I will tell you the flip side. What I think Gen Z misses a lot, and what's missed a lot here, is actually real information. And I think where Gen Z has really hurt recovery and 12-step groups is many Gen Zs have gone into a TikTok room with the illusion that they were coming into some 12-step meeting and said, well, it didn't work for me. This happens a lot when I'm on my lives. Has the world moved past having to walk into a room? Do we need to all be anonymous in order for people to feel comfortable doing it anymore? I will tell you that personally, it's been a little shattered. I say to myself, if I wasn't on TikTok and I was, and let's just say I wasn't on TikTok and I was anonymous, could I help as many people as I'm helping now? And I think clearly when I've thought about this, that's a giant NO. That's a no, I couldn't have. I couldn't have. Here's another thing that I think that we have to come with to grips with, friends. And if you are an AA person or NA person or Al-Anon person, I think we have to admit something. I think we have to admit historically, and there is no shame and condemnation, and this doesn't make anything wrong with 12-step groups, but this idea somehow that 12-step groups created sobriety or the desire to get sober or created getting sober is not true. And I think I have to say I'm going to talk for the boomers, which I know a lot of, the Gen Xers, sometimes are very hung up on the fact that, no, this is the way that it's always been. And we have some sort of weird ownership that we think we've had towards sobriety being one way or another way. And I have had to, friends, get over that in my life to understand that and to really look at historical context that AA did not create, NA did not create the pursuit of getting sober. Matter of fact, just like TikTokers are doing here, they adopted other modalities and repackaged it. And although I 100% agree, no one should go on to TikTok and say that they're representing a meeting that technically they can't do here or using a brand that they can't do here. Many of what we see as principles in AA, NA, Dharma recovery, celebrate recovery, these are universal principles. And I think we have to understand that as Gen Xers, boomers, and beyond, that as much as we love, and I could say flat out, 12 steps saved my life. Damon would not be here talking to you on this cast right now if it was not for 12 steps. I would not be here, friends. But as much as I love it, and as much as I really think when I first got sober and today 12-step plays a huge part in my life, I have to be honest with the fact that Bill and Bob did not invent this. They did not invent the pursuit of it or a higher power, but they did package it in a way that's readily available and almost virtually free for everyone. And I've had to ask myself, and in a way, friends, deprogram myself and say to myself, Damon, isn't that what Gen Z's doing on TikTok now? Repackaging what works and hasn't worked. Isn't that what you're doing? Saying we can have a bigger conversation about co-occurring disorders. Isn't that what we're doing, friends? So is Gen Z killing sobriety? I'm going to tell you, I don't think so, friends. I think it's widening the conversation. And what being on TikTok has done for me is it's made me understand that there's something bigger at play. And that's beyond TikTok, beyond a 12-step group. This is really about one person that's suffering connecting with another person that's suffering. So I think I could answer this article definitively. Not only is Gen Z not killing 12-step groups, I think they're going to take 10, 12-step groups into the next 100 years.
Hey, if you like this episode, think about supporting us by becoming a Recovered Life Plus member. At Recovered Life TV, we're not just delivering premium recovery resources, we're empowering you with the knowledge and tools that make a real difference in the quality of your recovery. By subscribing, you gain access to ad-free content, expert insights, exclusive video and audio segments, special projects, plus so much more, all while supporting our mission to spread the recovery message far and wide. Whether you're seeking to deepen your understanding or stay updated on the latest addiction and mental health recovery trends, Recovered Life Plus is for you. Subscribe now and start living your best recovered life. Just go to recoveredlife.tv and become a Plus member today.